The German POW camp was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that came from exhaustion, not peace. The prisoners stood in line, boots sunk into frozen mud, coats hanging loose on bodies that had lost too much weight. Weeks of thin rations had trained them not to expect anything more than a ladle of watery soup and a crust of bread. No one complained anymore. Complaining took energy. A few whispered guesses passed through the line. Soup again. Maybe boiled turnips. Don't hope, it only hurts more. Then the sound came. Engines. Not the sharp bark of military vehicles, but the slow, heavy rumble of trucks carrying weight. A lot of it. Heads lifted. 2 American trucks rolled into the camp, their backs covered with canvas. Steam escaped as soldiers jumped down, laughing quietly, slapping their hands together against the cold. One German POW frowned. Why would they bring trucks? For soup? An American sergeant spoke to the guards, then raised his voice. All right, listen up. Nobody moves. Food's coming. The word food traveled through the line faster than warmth ever could. The canvas was pulled back. Inside were crates, wooden crates, metal containers, large insulated boxes. One prisoner whispered, barely audible, "This can't be one meal." The Americans started unloading. Not carefully, not sparingly. They stacked crates on tables, more crates on the ground, then more. Lids came off. The smell hit first. Not soup, not boiled roots, real food, warm food. The line broke, not forward, but inward. Men grabbed each other's sleeves, steadying themselves as knees weakened. One POW covered his mouth, eyes wide. Another shook his head slowly. This is for everyone? An American soldier noticed the reaction and smiled. Yeah, he said simply. Eat slow. No one moved. Not because they didn't want to, but because none of them believed it yet. No one rushed forward. That was the strange part. The food was right there, close enough to smell, close enough to feel the heat rising from it, yet the line barely moved. German POWs stood frozen, trays shaking slightly in their hands, eyes locked on portions that felt unreal. A full piece of bread. Potatoes. Whole, not sliced thin to stretch them. Meat that wasn't floating in water. Milk. Real milk. One man swallowed hard and whispered, "If I eat this, it has to be a trick." An American soldier overheard him. He didn't laugh. He didn't correct him sharply. He simply leaned closer and said quietly, "It's not a trick, but you need to eat slow. Hear me?" The word slow confused them. They had spent months learning to eat fast, before the food ran out, before someone stronger took it, before hunger came back harder. Now they were being told the opposite. A POW near the front tried to take a large bite. His body rebelled instantly. He bent forward, coughing, clutching the table as pain shot through his stomach. The guards tensed, but the Americans raised their hands. "Easy," one said. "Sit. Breathe." They brought water. That shocked the line even more than the food. Not shouted orders, not punishment. Instructions. An older prisoner watched all of this with wet eyes. He hadn't reached the table yet, but he was already trembling. "Back home," he murmured. "This would feed a family." When it was finally his turn, he stared at the tray for a long moment before touching it. His hands hovered, unsure which item to start with. Like a man afraid the moment he chose, everything would disappear. He broke off a small piece of bread. Just a bite. Chewed slowly. Carefully. Nothing bad happened. Across the room, something changed. The silence wasn't fear anymore. It was restraint. Men reminding each other to slow down, to stop shaking, to sit before eating. An American medic walked through the rows, watching closely. "This isn't kindness," one POW whispered to another. "This is something else." Outside, the trucks were still there. They hadn't left. The first minutes passed without incident. That alone felt suspicious. German POWs sat at the long tables, backs straight, trays close to their chests as if someone might suddenly shout and take everything away. Every sound made them flinch. A boot step, a chair scraping, a spoon clinking against metal. No one spoke above a whisper. A young prisoner across the table stared at his tray as though it were a test. He counted the items again and again, lips moving silently. "This is too much," he said finally. "They'll stop us." An American guard heard him and shook his head. "Finish what you can," he replied. "More comes later." The words didn't make sense. More later? Several POWs froze with food halfway to their mouths. That was when the fear shifted. Not fear of hunger, but fear of hope. Hope had been dangerous for a long time. One man stood suddenly, tray shaking violently. "I can't," he said, his voice cracking. "If I eat it all and tomorrow there's nothing—" He didn't finish the sentence. An American medic stepped in quickly, placing a hand on the man's arm and guiding him back down. "You won't be punished for stopping," he said calmly, "and you won't be punished for eating." That sentence broke something. A middle-aged POW pressed his sleeve to his eyes, pretending to wipe sweat. Another bowed his head over the tray and stayed that way for a long moment, shoulders rising and falling as he fought to breathe steadily. They began sharing instructions among themselves. Small bites. Wait between them. Drink water. Not orders. Advice. Across the hall, an American soldier refilled an empty milk cup, slowly, carefully, then slid it back without a word. The prisoner receiving it stared at the cup longer than he drank from it. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, time slowed. For the first time in months, no one was rushing. No one was fighting. No one was stealing. The food wasn't disappearing, and that terrified them more than hunger ever had. The meal ended quietly, not with cheers, not with thanks spoken out loud, just the soft sounds of trays being set down, cups emptied slowly, and men sitting still, afraid that moving too fast might end whatever this was. An American officer entered the hall. Conversation stopped instantly. Some POWs straightened. Others lowered their eyes, already bracing for the announcement they were sure was coming. "Time's up. Back to barracks. Food distribution complete." Instead, the officer looked around the room and said calmly, "That was not a special occasion." Heads lifted. "That was the first of many." The words didn't register at first. A few prisoners exchanged glances, waiting for clarification or correction. "You'll be eating like this again," he continued. "Not all at once, not recklessly, but regularly." A pause. "We don't want you strong today," he added. "We want you alive tomorrow." One German POW whispered almost angrily, "Why?" The officer answered without raising his voice, "Because the war is ending, and starving men don't survive peace." That sentence settled over the room heavier than silence. American soldiers returned, not to clear tables, but to bring more crates inside. Medical supplies, blankets, written schedules posted on the wall, meal plans, not promises, plans. An older prisoner stood slowly, leaning on the table. "So, this wasn't mercy?" The officer met his eyes. "No," he said, "it's responsibility." Later that night, back in the barracks, no one slept. Not from hunger, from disbelief. Men lay on their bunks holding onto bread saved from the meal, not to eat, but to prove it had happened. Others whispered calculations, trying to understand how tomorrow could possibly include breakfast. Outside, the trucks were gone. Inside, something new remained. For the first time since capture, the future was no longer an empty space. And that, more than the food, was what finally broke them. End.